Hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Dave Hamilton's back on from the America Future Series. The question we are running with today, David, welcome back to the show, is, and look, I didn't set you up. You don't know this question's coming, so I know this isn't fair. But, David, name a Kamala Harris accomplishment.
Well, I run a nonpartisan think tank and speaker series, and we are avowedly nonpartisan. So
I'm sorry. Totally not fair. Totally not fair.
However, I will say this. She has been vice president, right, throughout this time period. And the only major initiative that I think that has been really successful in this administration has been the CHIPS Act, the desire, the intent, and the support of making sure that we are able to make our own semiconductors and not be dependent on our enemies or others who are perhaps at peril from them. So that's a good program. I don't know if she had anything to do with that one, but I like that one.
All right, well, let's talk about what I did bring you on here. We've been told to brace for an attack by Iran for a few weeks now. Is this going to happen?
So they have been attacking us. We don't hear about all the attacks. Our bases do get attacked from time to time. They're heavily guarded. That's great. But we hear about them from time to time, and I think it's when it's helpful to get certain messages out. We have been supportive of Israel to a certain degree since October 7th, but this is at least a good step showing our willingness to try to deter Hamas from further attacks, and which is backed by Iran. I think we probably would all agree that if we had showed greater full-throated support of Israel from the beginning, then we would have not emboldened or so that the appeasement that we've done has increased the likelihood that that Hamas and Iran would make attacks. And so I hope that we'll keep this up, that we might even increase this, because this is not a huge movement of troops. It is a show of force. It's a strike group. It's not huge. Back in 2023, we moved 1,200 troops there. We brought the Gerald Ford in, big strike group, et cetera.
Gerald Ford, the aircraft carrier, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did that, and I would like to see us do something more along those lines. The approach has been incrementalism. There's been a desire to not sort of overstep, a very, very cautious approach. But when you do that, your enemy quite often says, "Yeah, how serious are they?" And I'd like to see a more serious build up and a stronger show of force.
So Iran has to keep at least the talk up out there, but we've seen in the past that they've promised strikes and they never materialize. Is that what we're hoping is the best outcome here?
I think that is the best outcome. We have bloodied their nose a few times, and when we've done that, they've gone quiet. And I just don't think that we can continue to let them think that they can get away with these kinds of attacks on Israel and other of our allies, and not have expect a retaliation. That seems to be the only deterrence. Talk has not worked with them for 30 years, and I don't think it's going to work now.
The Iranian people seem to be reasonable. They don't seem to be full of the fanatics, like you see coming out of Afghanistan, or, I don't want to throw dirt on Saudi Arabia, but, of all the countries that give us grief, I have the most hope probably for Iran. Is there any chance they have like an election coming up where they could just flip out this leadership and get back to being the normal Iran they were before the revolution? No,
the theocracy is in full control and full power. They do protest some, and they are afforded some freedoms, but the theocracy, the mullahs, the ayatollahs have full power. The people that we meet that come from Iran are very well educated. They're entrepreneurial. They're great people. I mean, we're lucky to have that group, right? The problem is the more and more of those that come over here that are very much like us, that have American values, that leaves behind a group that is less powerful, less well funded, et cetera, and less able to push back.
Yeah, you know what? That's an observation I've made about Europe. Like we gripe about Europe so much. Like, what's their problem? Well, all the robust people came to America a few hundred years ago and left behind the serfs. The ones that are like, I don't know, I think I'll take my chances here on the feudal estate. No, so that's sort of a brain drain happening to Iran, I suppose, could be happening too.
If you can get out, you ought to. I can't blame anyone for doing that. But what that leaves behind is a group of people who simply don't have the financial resources,
right,
to push back, and they also usually don't have the educational or political power to do that. And as the country continues to go spiral down, the theocracy just strengthens its grip.
That's terrible, because they're great when they come up. The ones that came over here that I've met, every single one of them, great. They all go to college. They don't commit crimes.
Fantastic people. They start businesses.
I've never seen an Iranian guy under the bridge over here by the studios panhandling for money. It just doesn't happen. So, all right.
Two of my best friends, they slept on their floor for years, got through college, started businesses, et cetera, and are very pro-American.
David Hamilton from the America's Future series. You can find more of his work, americas-fs.org. But if you search for America's Future series, it pops up right at the top of all the search engines there. Now, you guys have an event coming up in Frisco in September?
September 26th, we have a supply chain innovation and national security summit.
Riveting.
At the University of North Texas in Frisco. Yeah, too many syllables there. Apologize. But also in the evening, we have what I affectionately refer to as a rubber chicken dinner. We're raising money and awareness for two very worthy military causes. One Tribe, which is 22 Kill, and Deliver Fund, which uses our military to catch sexual predators and sex traffickers. And we're honoring General Milley with General Petraeus, General Votel, Ross Perot, a whole host of folks, Darcy Anderson, Flo Groberg, the Medal of Honor recipient. It's a great group of people. It's going to be a great evening here in DFW, and it's all on our website.
Yeah, so go to that event, except for the 2 to 5 when the James Show is on. You can just go out to your car and listen to the radio show.
I want you to know that we're not doing anything from 2 to 5.
Thank you very much. All right. America's Future Series. That's David Hamilton from America's Future Series. All right, coming up next, the question remains, name a Kamala Harris accomplishment. You know what? I think I could squeeze a call in right here. How do you pronounce it? What is this, Garrett? Kenya? Is that right? Kenya from Dallas, you're on the James Show. Sorry about mispronouncing your name, but Garrett's a terrible speller.
That's okay. Can you hear me fairly well?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, let me name one accomplishment. One accomplishment she has done is sitting over Congress and absolutely doing nothing. That was the job that she had. All the things that she's trying to run for right now, she didn't do when she had the power to do it. And another thing that she accomplished was running for president without even following our rules. You are already starting out wrong. You and the she and the Democratic Party did not put in not one application to run for president of the United States of America. You are already showing that you're going to do what you want to do because you're not following the rules. So the only thing that she has done to accomplish to me is be deceitful and not go with the grain the way America has laid it out to happen.
You know, you made me think of something there. Did you ever watch House of Cards? Kevin Spacey and Buttercup from Princess Bride. What's her name? Did you ever see that? Yeah, Robin Wright. Thank you. It's a guy who is in Congress and he manages to become president, but not by winning an election. First, he weasels his way into vice president, and then he backstabs the president and gets him caught up in a scandal. So the president has to resign. And there's a scene where he breaks the fourth wall and he looks into the camera and he goes, "President, without one vote." And then he knocks on the table because that's like one of his little signature moves. And that made me, that's what Kamala just did. You're right. She's a presidential candidate, didn't have to get one vote, didn't have to go to any rallies, didn't have to get on any ballots, didn't have to do any of the caucuses or the primaries or the debates, any of that.
I want to know how we doing it. How is America allowing for that to happen?
Well, I'll tell you why. Because half this country believes the other guy's Hitler, so they'll do whatever it takes because they've been trained to hate Trump so much. They'll put up with a candidate being forced on them that they didn't vote for because the alternative they believe is Hitler. And once you can get people to believe absurdities, then you can get them to commit atrocities. That's paraphrased from Voltaire. Thank you very much. 800-288-9227. Name a Kamala Harris accomplishment. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Let's go. All right, let's stop in, check in on a situation that was the most important thing in the world. Everyone changed their profile picture, and everyone was putting up bumper stickers and waving flags, and seems some people have lost interest in the old war in Ukraine. What happened to that? Is it still going on? Let's ask a guy from the Heritage Foundation. Brent Sadler is on the James Show. Is this thing still happening? What's going on with Ukraine, Brent?
Well, Ukraine's actually quite hot right now, literally in the fighting sense of it. The last few days, almost a week now, you've got a major incursion, first ever, of Ukrainian forces pushing pretty deep into the Kursk district of Russia. This is right adjacent to the Moscow district, so pretty significant. The Russians have not been able to slow them down yet.
So we've gone from Ukraine defending itself against the Russian invasion to Russia defending itself against the Ukrainian invasion?
It's a little bit more complex. Russia is still on the offense, but they're making very slow, but very at a high cost of their own soldiers' lives in the south and in what's called the Donbass region. But this push in by the Ukrainians has certainly caught the Russians by surprise. And still early days as to see how far they're going to go and how long they can sustain themselves inside Russian territory. But the strategic goal seems to be to distract Moscow from their offensives in the south, to try to compel them to the negotiated solution. Probably won't work by itself, but also to signal to D.C. that Ukraine is a worthy cause to back.
Yeah, I've never negotiated any peace treaties, but it kind of feels like they're going in to take part of Russia just so they have something to bargain with. They have no intention of keeping it. They probably couldn't keep it if they want to. But, if you give us back this little section, we'll give you back this part. And it's almost like they're taking some territorial hostage.
That is a possibility. I mean, there has been lots of indications that our election in November for our next president is kind of a watershed event that's going to push both these parties to come to the negotiating table. And if they've got more land that they can deal with, the better when they get forced to that negotiating table, because the weapons may be drying up and Russia may be in a situation of facing a much more invigorated American support likewise. So it'd be interesting to see. We still are in the early stages of this whole thing. And I think the Russians are also getting weary of this war at the same time.
How much is this credited to American support? I mean, we've been giving them supplies, but there's been some sort of policy change to now we're a little more involved.
Well, two things are missing on the battlefield: the F-16s that they have been delivered to Ukraine in the recent past, and then the long-range HIMARS rocket system. There's been news around town here in D.C. that the administration's been asked by Ukraine to use the HIMARS to attack deeper into Russia, and it seems that that's not been forthcoming. And again, the reaction of the White House would lead one to believe that they were completely in the dark. Probably understandable given the last 2+ years of the White House kind of sitting on any offensives on the part of the Ukrainians that would actually take the fight to Russia.
What do you think? How's this going to end up? When they do the peace treaty, I feel like they're going to slice off a little bit of Ukraine, keep the rest intact, and call it a day. Is that a reasonable assumption?
It's hard to say. I mean, the Ukrainians want all their land back, rightfully so. Crimea is kind of the crown jewel and has an emotional connection to the Russians and has kind of a mixed history. So honestly, it's going to be a challenge to see what the give and take is on the territory. But I also don't think that this incursion into Kursk is enough for Ukraine to get everything back that they want.
All right. Well, thanks for the update, Brent Sadler from the Heritage Foundation. I appreciate you being on the James Show on WBAP, sir.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Good luck to those internecine post-Soviet squabbles. Hey there. Welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Have we reached peak woke? One reason that's being asked is there's a Wall Street Journal article that shows the mentions of environmental diversity and social initiatives during earnings calls. Like every quarter, these giant companies that are on the stock market, these publicly traded companies, they have to have earnings calls and be transparent with some of the numbers. And they found that those mentions have declined significantly over the last few quarters. So let's ask Scott Baradell about this. He's been on the James Show before, and he's a good mind to tap on these marketing issues. Have we reached peak woke, Scott?
Well, I wouldn't go out on a limb and say we've reached peak woke, but I definitely think it's at more of an ebb right now. I think that these things tend to ebb and flow, and you're right. Corporations are not focused as much on DEI. That's been documented. Corporations. I'll give you a great example. We just had the Major League Baseball All-Star Game in Texas.
Right.
The commissioner was asked, "Hey, Texas, they're the only stadium that doesn't have a gay pride event, and should they be allowed to have the All-Star Game?" Because guess what? It was just a few years ago when the Major League Baseball pulled the All-Star Game from Atlanta because of legislation passed about voting. And this is the kind of thing that is very emblematic of what's changed, because the commissioner said, no, things like having a pride night is one of many factors we consider. And I think that's what's changed is you could say things are being put in a broader context. You could say if you don't think there's enough attention being paid to these issues now that they're being brushed under the rug. I guess it all comes down to your perspective, but it's definitely changed.
Well, I see Bud Light hasn't gone out of business. Did they ever recover from their brush with the mob?
Well, I wouldn't say they've recovered. In fact, they're not the top selling beer anymore. They're not even the top selling Anheuser-Busch beer. Michelob Ultra has passed them up, and the gap between the two is increasing. I think that Bud Light did the last thing you want to do, which was they tried to be everything to everybody. They kind of apologized, but they didn't really want to apologize, and then they threw everything against the wall to see what would stick in terms of their messaging after that, which made them feel like they were just trying to say what would make people happy than what they actually believed, or if they actually had beliefs.
Well, a lot of people that listen to WBAP are business owners themselves, or they're in a position in their business to sort of control the marketing angle. What would you tell them if they were thinking, maybe I will put a Trump flag out, maybe that'll be good for business? So what do you think about businesses deciding to be political?
Well, I think it's always risky. I think there's a difference between having values and being political. You can support the environment without being vocal about climate change. You can support diversity in your workplace and really value that without throwing around terms like DEI, which have become so loaded. You can have conservative values without supporting a political candidate in a public way. I think what the data shows time and again, and that hasn't changed, is that consumers don't particularly want their brands to be political, but they do want their brands to have values. And you can have values. You can support sustainability without being Greenpeace. There are ways to have values without stepping on hot buttons that are going to turn off a section of your customer base.
I find that so curious because I don't have that gene. I don't boycott anything, and one of the reasons why it seems so counterintuitive to me is because this gas I put in my car, some of that came from a country where they throw gay people off roofs. So apparently I am not sticking to my values where I put my dollars at all times. It's just these little, it's almost like a trend. It's almost like something cool. Oh, well, I'm boycotting this brand because I'm a good person. It seems more of a virtue signal than a principle. Yeah.
And also very symbolic, to your point. I mean, for years, there's been this discussion of when it comes to cars or something else, hey, buy American. Well, guess where all the parts of that quote unquote American product came from? I mean, it's the way things are made and the way things are consumed and the way things are marketed. It's very hard to isolate something like that in a way that where you can say, oh, everything about this product aligns with what I think and what I feel. It's usually a lot more complicated than that.
All right, Scott, tell them what y'all do down at Idea Grove.
Well, we help companies with branding and marketing and PR.
It's that simple. Ideagrove.com. Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
There he is. Scott Baradell back on the James Show. Maybe we have reached peak woke, or maybe it's going to come back next year with a vengeance. I don't know, but I'm kind of liking the idea of corporations backing off politics. And not everything has to be political. Can I just do something without politics being involved? Can I please drink a beer without having to think about the political ramifications of the company behind it. Remember when the world was so much simpler? Remember all the way back to like, I don't know, the 90s? Coming up next, I'm starting to think these street racers, they should be sentenced like murderers. Like if they're in Grand Prairie, a crash killed a family of 4 from street racers. I think that should be the same as if a guy just squeezed off some bullets into a crowd and hit a family of 4. What do you think? 800-288-9227. That's coming up next on The James Show. 800-288-9227. Snooze Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.